no one else who loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves. There's no one I can turn to. And I know all the feelings that we shared are in the past. And I know your relationships are never meant to last. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on. We're moving on. I know times are tough, but I've had enough. We're moving on. We're moving on. We're moving on. Sometimes there's no one else who loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves. There's no one I can turn to. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on. We're moving on. I know times are tough, but I've had enough. We're moving on. We're moving on. We're moving on.
Hey guys, welcome. I see you guys are hopping on early today. Like and share. Welcome to the broadcast, Sandra. Welcome to the broadcast. Good to see you on today. Good morning, Tish. I see you. Good morning, Marguerite. You are a wonderful friend of Unfiltered. Welcome, Freedom by Design Movement. I see you guys. Go ahead and like and share. People do not want to miss today. I am so excited. Hey, Tina, welcome to the broadcast. Welcome. Listen, Linda. It has been such an amazing couple of months. Welcome, Tyson. Welcome, Christina. Welcome, Joyce. I see you guys hopping on. Welcome, Gifty. Thank you guys for coming. Listen, it has been really, hey, Dee, welcome. Good morning, sis. It has been an amazing, really an amazing journey to get to this point. And it's kind of like week to week, I'm given instructions. And by following the instructions, the broadcast has continued to grow. You guys have continued to show up. People have continued to be blessed because you all pour into this broadcast, not just physically, but financially. And I have to say thank you guys for that in this season. I love you all and I appreciate you. And good morning, Avril. I thank you guys for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share with you all who one of the sponsors is for today's giveaway. As you guys know, we give away money every week. This week's no different. And I'm going to go ahead and give away who one of the sponsors is for today. One of the sponsors is actually near and dear to my heart. I actually get on this broadcast every morning of the week, and we invite you guys to do the same. As none other than the God Zone. The God Zone is actually sponsoring a portion of the Be Blessed giveaway. Take a screenshot of this information, dial in every single morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you can be encouraged and be inspired. It is an hour of power. It is an hour of prayer. It is an hour of transformation. So we invite you guys to be part of the God Zone. They're going to be the sponsors in the giveaway, but that is going to happen later. I just wanted to go ahead and tell you who it was going to be. But for right now, we have so much to talk about, and we have such an amazing guest with us today that I want to go ahead and get started with some things that were put on my spirit at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I just started writing and writing and writing. And so I want to share with you guys on today, because what do? We be blessed and we stay woke. So we're about to get into the stay woke portion of the broadcast. So you guys continue to like and share. But before I invite our special guest on to talk, I want to talk to you guys about what's happening. We always do what's happening in history, and we know what's happening in history this week. If you guys have been watching, we've been talking about the 100-year anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre. And it's interesting. I can be real with you guys and be completely honest and tell you I knew nothing about it until a couple of years ago. I'm 50 years old this year, and I knew nothing about it until a couple of years ago. So here's the deal, guys. There is an anointing on finances in this season. And I have to say that because I'm going to start with that and I'm going to end with that. But it is surprising the number of people who have simply settled for their station in life, whether they're white, whether they're black, whether they're Spanish. Welcome to the broadcast group, though. I see you. It doesn't matter. Color is irrelevant to this particular portion of the conversation, because people settle for their station in life because of a mark that was left on their spirit by their history or by their perception of history. So sometimes I'm black, I got to speak for me, can get caught up in the black experience here in America. And we sometimes overlook the human experience. I say that because here are some facts, and I want you guys to interact. Y'all know how we do. This is Unfiltered. This is our broadcast, and we all conversate through the chat, right? So I'm going to say a word, and I want you to tell me what comes to mind when I say it. If I say ghetto, who do you think about? Hey, Tiffany, welcome to the broadcast. I want y'all to put it in the chat. When you say ghetto, most people, hey, Tiffany Yarn Mitchell, my best friend, most people say black people. If I say trailer park, who do you think about? What is the perception that comes up when I say trailer park? In my neighborhood, when people say trailer park, they think of poor white people. And if I say Wall Street, what do people think about? What image comes to mind when I say Wall Street? When I say Wall Street, the image that comes to mind for most people is rich white men or wealth or something that's unattainable. And it's interesting that Jackie put the word white trash. And I always didn't know where that word came from. I was like, where does that come from? And someone said the white people that the white people threw away. And I'm saying that because there's black people that black people threw away. But I have to bring that in perspective because there's still a mark left on the history of either how your own people treated you or their own people think about you, or just your station in life. So those three things, and I see you guys are coming up. Exactly. We all have the same stereotypes. We all have the same perceptions of those words. I'm just now seeing your words popping up in the chat. So here's the question. How many people who are watching right now this broadcast actually learned about the stock market as a child? I want you to say it in the chat. Did you learn about the stock market as a child? What about in middle school? What about in high school? Let's be honest. Did you learn about the stock market and investing in high school? What about in college? Now, if you took finances or you're in accounting, of course, you may have learned about it. But what about in college? Did you learn about the stock market or investing or anything like that when you were in college? I can tell you I didn't. What about as an adult? What about ever? Some people never learned about it. This week in history, our country is commemorating, and I don't know, some of you guys may have saw the Biden speech. Jackie says, not until I got older. The same is true for most of us. Some of you may have saw the Biden speech, but we're commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacres. This is really more about Black Wall Street than it is anything else. There was a movement happening a couple of years ago when I finally learned about it. And there's this movement called Reclaim or Rebuild Black Wall Street. And I was like, what is Black Wall Street? Like, what are they talking about? But everybody was like, yeah, we're going to build Black Wall Street. But nobody really understood where the word came from, because Black Wall Street represented wealth. It represented sustainability. It represented people taking care of themselves and their own communities. So that's what Tulsa really represented as we're here in this 100th anniversary season. So here's the deal. I want to stop for a second, and I want you guys to watch a video clip. And then we're going to, in a second, bring in the special guest, and we're going to talk some more. But I want you guys to watch this video clip of a documentary, because a lot of us still don't know about it, right? A video clip of a documentary that was done by the History Channel on the Tulsa Massacre. And this is a quick 2-minute overview, but it's succinct. So let's watch this together.
The destruction was so complete. The suffering was so biblical. The betrayal was so profound.
Black communities deserve the opportunity to confront the past.
Our city has been stuck since then. We've never recovered.
Tulsa was the best place in the nation for African Americans.
We have everything from hotels, theaters,
Doctors, lawyers.
people refer to it as Black Wall Street.
Showing Black people that a new world was possible.
The Tribune published a story titled "Nab Negro for Attacking Girl in an Elevator." It was a false narrative to keep Black people in their place, to reinforce white supremacy.
All across Tulsa, angry whites are now organizing. They get their guns, they get their torches. At that point, they start moving towards Greenwood. All hell broke loose.
And then the whites are killing the colored folks.
Firing into homes.
Bombs dropping from the air.
It was just an all-out massacre.
Now, one of those men who participated in the race massacre were ever brought to justice.
The Tulsa Tribune refused to write anything about the massacre for more than 50 years. Victims were being buried in unmarked graves across the city. The reason we understand the history of the massacre is that certain survivors decided to talk about it.
My mother saw 4 men coming toward our house, and all of them had torches.
We would be looking for the remains of those who were lost so tragically.
This is so beautiful and sad at the same time.
We need to do something about what happened in Tulsa.
There could not be any justice till there is proper respect, restitution, and repair.
So for those of you who were like me and didn't know much about history and didn't know much about what had happened, I encourage you all to watch watch the History Channel documentary. Watch one that's coming out starting tonight with Oprah Winfrey has one coming out, a 2-day special on it, so that you can learn the history. I say that because here's what happened. A long time ago, hundreds, maybe even thousands of African Americans who were living in the South post-slavery decided that enough was enough, and that they wanted to be somewhere where they could build and they wouldn't always be treated like slaves and wouldn't be in the situation that they're in. They decided that they were tired of being where they were not wanted. So they went somewhere else. By the way, that's a word for somebody. They got tired of being where they weren't wanted, so they went somewhere else. They had the opportunity to do that. And so they decided to change their own destiny. They went west. They went to Oklahoma. And when they're in Oklahoma, they built this 35-block area where they owned hotels, they owned grocery stores, they were the doctors, they were the lawyers, they had everything. And a lot of people talk about rebuilding Wall Street and they're like, oh, but we need to be separate to do that. But here's a fact. They couldn't live in white neighborhoods. They couldn't do it where the white people were because we still had separate only bathrooms, right? And so that's the situation that happened, but it also showed that you can move freely and that you can thrive, and that 100 years ago, people were building to that level. But you know what else happened 100 years ago? During this riot, and me and Martin are going to talk about this, there was misuse of police power. There was a lack of accountability. You heard them say in the video that none of them people who was killing folks ever were held accountable, right? And there was violence against Black people. 100 years later, some people would argue that everything has changed. And some people would argue ain't nothing changed at all, because it sounds like the same thing to me. So here to join the conversation is a dear friend of mine. He is a serial entrepreneur, perfect for this. He knows a little bit something about chasing dreams and about going somewhere else to do it. He's a former police detective, so he knows a little bit about law enforcement. And he just happens to be from Oklahoma, so he can add a little color in that area too. Family, please help me welcome my friend and your friend, because if he's not your friend right now, he will be after this broadcast. So I present to you and introduce to others, none other than Martin Augustine. Welcome to Unfiltered.
Unfiltered, man. So honored to be here. I didn't even know you were about to introduce me. I was so engaged in what you were talking about. I was like, look, let's just stay right there. Certainly excited about being here and sharing this platform with my dearest friend. So yeah, let's dive into this. You unpacked so much already. This is going to be fun right here.
Yes, it is so much. Okay, so let's start with this. You're from Oklahoma, and they talked about how this incident was buried in history, right? So you being from Oklahoma, I bet you learned about this in grade school, right?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely. Hold on. You learned about it in high school.
Absolutely not.
You live in Oklahoma. This happened over 100 years ago. You had to learn about this somewhere in Oklahoma. Somebody taught it to you.
Not even in an HBCU in Oklahoma did we learn about this Black Wall Street. It wasn't until I was here in Atlanta that I understood. I've heard the phrase Black Wall Street before, but just trying to self-indulge whomever was speaking about it, thought it was a great place, and it was just a place, or it was just referencing well-to-do finance. So when you look at Wall Street, I was like, oh yeah, Black Wall Street. And that's, you kind of dismiss it as if you know, so you could be a part of the conversation that was never happening.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it wasn't until I was here in Atlanta that I found out and really understood not just Black Wall Street, but Juneteenth. Had no idea what that was. That was barbecue weekends. That's what that meant.
Right.
The Greenwood Festival meant barbecue weekends. That it never really had any other significance to it at all. So yeah, like many, I walked around blind for a long time.
That's interesting, because here's the thing. The history was buried because I don't know if you guys know, at that time, they were considered an oil producing center. And this massacre looked bad on the state, so they buried it. But by burying that, they also buried the history of wealth that existed in our community. So I got to ask you this, because I know the answer and I want them to answer. Who told you about the massacre? Who told you about Black Wall Street?
So here I am in Atlanta on a recording contract there. My brothers and I, we're in studio and of course struggling for our identity voice. That was a consensus that we're all going to go get earrings in our ear to try to make it as a fashion statement of who we were. And it was a white older gentleman that pretty much, he looked like a little hippie, broke down Black Wall Street and so many other Black historical moments in our life. And he began to question, do you know what the earring means? He's like, you guys getting earrings, you don't even know what that means.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we were, of course, baffled, embarrassed that this guy is about to educate us on who
you are.
Yeah. And it was then when he was like, yeah, the ring came from Africa, and there was a rites of passage that a father gave to his son. That was, that signified that he was a man. you're wearing it just to
It's
say
a fashion statement.
yeah, fashion statement. He was the one who educated me on the sagging pants. He's like, you sagging, you guys are sagging pants, and thank God that was never one that caught on with me. But a sagging pants being a fashion statement and so forth. When that originated in prison, it signified someone who was on suicide watch. When so that they didn't hang themselves with their belts and their shoestrings that was taken from them, and their pants were falling, or that they were sexually abused by someone there, and it was just to make sure that they didn't escape that prison by taking their own life. And there was just so many things, that just a litany of Black history. I walked out of there both embarrassed, humbled, and enlightened at that point. So it wasn't until I was a grown man that I learned about Black Wall Street.
Wow. You said a mouthful there. And when you talked about kind of the fashion statements and us not really understanding the history, and in this particular case with Tulsa, the history was buried, right? But this other history is available, but we just adopt whatever the current trend is, or we adopt whatever the meaning is, right? And so as you were talking, I was thinking, and I have on a note right in front of me, the fact that this Black Wall Street existed, which meant that they were prominent, and they had businesses, and they had nice cars, and they were well dressed, right? But they also had land.
Yeah.
They owned something. So, but we live here, when you translate it to where we live right now, people got the nice cars, people well dressed, be fly, okay? Line wrapped around the Gucci store and the Louis Vuitton store and everything else, but then they go home to an apartment and don't own nothing.
Yes.
There is power in owning land. Talk to us.
So it's crazy, because I started thinking about it. First of all, land don't ever spoil, and they not making no more. It is, we have what we have. So the value of land is just invaluable. So here this group of people is, again, and you gotta, man, this, as I began to unpack it, I'm so more fascinated about it now than I even was just. So here this group of people who have now been locked out of society, not just social society, but economic society, all prosperities and so forth. And here we are now with an abolishment of slavery. So now slavery has now been abolished. It has been as illegal to own, but now the center stage is oppression. So now here's oppression that has now taken center stage, and oppression is invisible until it becomes visible. So here this group of people say, listen, we got to work, we got to earn, we got to live, we got to buy, we got to go to these places that our dollars are equal to the dollars of the oppressors, or the white people, but our rights are less than. So we can spend the same amount of money for the services, but get less of the services that we paid for. So now instead of us, we'll go and work in the neighborhoods that they'll allow us to work in. They'll allow us to clean the homes. They'll allow us to be the manual labor. They'll allow us to do, but we're going to, and I hope we get this as a family, but now we're going to allow, instead of spending it with them, we're going to go and spend it with ourselves. We're going to create a place where it is a safe haven. So we'll take dollars from one place, spending it. And how many people, they say, if you want to know where a people thrive, follow the money. So instead of spending the money in the places where they thought we would spend it at, we went to this little place in Oklahoma and says, listen, we'll support the Black-owned businesses here, because I can go in here and spend my money and sit at the counter where I'm spending money. I can go and buy clothes and actually try them on in the place that I'm buying them from. I can actually go to a doctor and have that doctor perform life-saving surgeries with the money that we have. So that's what made this place so strong. And like, for me, the message became that if we ever decided to, because look at, you mentioned this in your opening, the resources that they had was limited. The access that they had was limited. The places they could do was limited, unlike what we have today. But they decided to make their voice loud, and they were not doing it to make a statement. They were doing it just to exist. let's just exist in our own environment. Let's go where we're safe. And it became the most affluent place in the world at this point, or at least in our country. And that created envy. And if y'all don't get that,
Get out my notes.
Envy kills there, because that's what, if you're talking about a group of Black people who have indoor plumbing at a time when white people had to go out to the outhouse. You're talking about Black people who were driving cars that they would not even let them ride in; they would let them walk behind. So that created this atmosphere of envy. And envy is here's what the government did, and I'll get out of the way here. The government then deputized envious people. Yeah, if this don't come to today, the government had deputized envious people and said, correct the problem there. And so the whole point is, they could have gone and put padlocks on the doors. They could have fired the people from the jobs that was creating all this wealth. They could have done something simplistic, but what they wanted to do was kill the imagination of freedom. That was the whole thing. So if we can decimate them and control this population by fear and envy created a baby that created this atmosphere that we cannot do this. Because if we do this, here's the results of what would happen. So
you can keep going on that. Facts. Like, I'm looking at the comments, they're blowing up. You can probably see them on the side of your screen.
Yes.
But you said so much, and it's all in my notes. That's why I'm like, this is such perfect alignment. I was like, boy, if you don't get out my notes. So here's the thing, and I'm gonna piggyback on a couple of things. Kill the imagination of freedom. That's why you bury the history. That's why people don't know where they're from or what they're capable of or how powerful they are. But I want to flip that thing upside down and look at it. If they're envious of you, the powers that be, and sometimes it's not a race thing, it's an economic thing, right? Or if they're trying to keep you down, that means they see who you are more than you do.
Yeah.
That means they recognize your power and you don't.
Yes.
So instead of looking at it from a perspective of, oh, I can't ever get nothing because they're not going to let me keep nothing and I can't move forward. It's been done before. When, Martin, you already said that they had way less resources than we have.
Yes.
They found a way to do it. And when you talked about how they left the South and went to the North, they went. They made a decision that they were sick and tired and they left. We can make the same decision and decide to go do something different. It's different than what happened with the Indians. So when you think about the Indians, it's called the Trail of Tears for a reason. They were forced to go live in a wasteland.
Right.
We got up and left.
Right.
We made a decision and we decided to build something for ourselves. So if it could be done 100 years ago, why can't it be done again today? Because that same scar, mental scar, right, exists in the mind because we don't know who we are. And it exists because we're like, oh, well, they're meant to keep us down. Or we're getting comfortable. And this could be a whole nother conversation because I feel like this last year and a half has been helping people get comfortable, not working, helping people get comfortable, not starting businesses, helping people get comfortable eating off somebody else, the crumbs from somebody else's table. Come on, somebody.
Right.
Well, what we should be doing is thriving in this season. Land is a limited resource. It's on my notes. And if you don't think there's an agenda to reacquire the land, you just keep on living.
That's right.
Everything that happened in the past and everything that's even happened since we've been living is part of an agenda to reacquire the land because the land represents what? Real wealth. Ain't gonna be no more land. And if you own the land, can't nobody kick you off of it. Think back, Martin, to 2008. Do you remember when the real estate bubble happened?
It affected me drastically.
Right. So, and so what happened was over time, all of these people were getting these loans they couldn't afford. They're like, oh, you can have one. You get a house, you get a house, you get a house, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. It was like he was on the Oprah Winfrey show.
Yes.
And you living in a $500,000 house working at McDonald's. No, you can't afford it, but the doors were open to the foolery, right? And then the bubble happened. And what happened? they reacquired the land.
That's correct.
Because while others were getting foreclosed on and kicked out and moved back into the apartment complexes, the investors were buying up the land. $200,000 houses being sold for $30,000
Right,
because they knew the bubble was coming.
right, right.
But we got to be smart. And I said that analogy because in Tulsa, when they moved them people out and burned everything, they reacquired the land. When they moved all the Black people out of Forsyth County, that did happen. Look it up. They reacquired the land. Annette, you better teach them because it's happened all over the country where they push people out and they reacquire the land. So while we're in this season, Martin, what should people be doing? Like, we here because we got to stay woke, right? Should we be spending all the money on Louis? I mean, should we be like planning to get a $1,800 a month apartment? Or should we be trying to buy some land and get a house and start a business? What is it that we're supposed to be doing?
So all my life I've heard knowledge is power, knowledge is power, knowledge is power. One of the oppressing actions that they did to our people is they locked us out of knowing. Because if we ever know what it is that we have, if we ever know what it is that we're capable of, if we ever know what it is that our futures hold, then we would then begin to govern ourselves different from. So you start talking about it's when a group of people decide we're going to own our own. So here we are all fighting to get a seat at the table. Y'all got to get this because you said this a lot. So here we are all trying to get our seat at the table. Here we all trying to get our piece of the American dream, whatever that dream is, expensive cars or bank accounts or whatever it is. But we lost it. I used to say this in law enforcement quite a bit. You better know the difference between accepted and tolerated. They'll tolerate you at the table, but you're never going to be accepted. So what this group of people decided to do with their finances, because they knew finances meant. So here we are in this wasteland. You got to understand, the only reason we got the area, that 40 blocks there, is because they looked at it as insignificant, unvaluable land until it was developed by us. So here they are saying, listen, instead of fighting for a seat at the table, let's just make our own. Instead of trying to be, accepted or tolerated at someone else's table, let's get accepted at our own table. Here's a table that we can create that'll have all-encompassing acceptance of everybody, regardless of. So that was not everybody in Black Wall Street was not doing financially well, but it was all accepted for who they were and where they were. So if we in this time can find a way to be all encompassing to our own, how many times we say, I'm guilty. I'll be the first. Black owned business. That's why Black owned businesses get one shot. The food is bad. I ain't going back. But we've gone to the same restaurant across the town multiple times and was again we weren't tolerated, we weren't accepted. You can come in here, you can eat, but listen, understand when it comes to problems, if the police run into the crowded restaurant, the first person they run into is a person of color, when that person of color wasn't even there. So that's the tolerating your presence. So if we could ever decide to do what these people did, let's create our own table. Let's create our own. Let's buy land where we can be empowered and we can control. They tried to kill the ideology of freedom, of self-prosperity, of Black, awareness. They tried to kill it 100 years ago, and here we are. So here's my history lesson for the group. Those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. If we don't do something to empower and keep that power, will be Black Wall Street in Riverdale. It'll be Black Wall Street in Alpharetta. It'll be the Black Wall, because they'll run us out of those areas as well too. Maybe not the same drastic measures as Black Wall Street, but we will get, when the government wants a wants an area back from us.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain. You took it out of my mouth there. They will take I can't even say it right now because I'm so excited. Eminent domain. They will take that to take back whatever it is. But if we ever get woke, if we ever stay conscious, man, we are a dangerous group of people. We proved it with 40 blocks out of the entire country. You got to see how big that is. Out of the entire country, 40 blocks was what they feared the most because it was Black empowerment. That's it.
Okay, that's like a new t-shirt coming soon. Fear the 40 blocks. Fear the 40, baby. Fear the 40. Okay, so I want to go back to something you said about that one chance we give Black businesses. But you go back to that other business because it's the it spot, because everybody hangs out there. Oh, we got to give them another chance because you want to be seen there, blah, 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 blah. But we give each other one chance.
One shot.
But that one shot mentality comes because it's been ingrained into our heads that they don't trust us, so we don't trust us.
That's correct.
They don't think that we do business appropriately, so we don't think we do business appropriately, right? And it's kind of like when we were growing up as children, I got to speak for me, you were taught what? That you had to be twice as good as everybody else, if not 3 or 4 times better, right?
Yeah.
You had to bend over backwards because the microscope was on you, but we still do it to one another.
Yeah.
So when we talk about even accountability from that perspective, don't we have to be accountable for how we treat one another, how we look at one another, how we perceive one another, and how we don't build up one another?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 1000%. So here we are on the one strike mentality. Here's what we often talk about in my circle there. You know, money, and we talk about money because that financial information, we can't deny it. It's a necessity of life right there. But what money does is buy you better choices than what you had before. Mm-hmm. I used to hear this statement all along because it became a social acceptance for failure. You're a product of your environment. When I started unpacking that thing being a product of our environment, here's what you said. I had to make a choice from bad or worse. I had to make a choice from bad or badder. So when I made the choice, I made a bad choice because the only options were bad to begin with. And then I taught that behavior to those that were following behind me. So now you are talking about me being a product of my own environment, making bad choice after bad choice after bad choice. That's what this whole conversation is about. It's about giving us the ability to make better choices. Because a single mother having to choose between either I go to work, sell my body, or do this to feed my child, or I live out home outside with my child. I mean, the choices is what the finances deal with. That's why they wanted to kill that infrastructure, to take the ability to make good choices.
That is super powerful. And speaking of the ability to make good choices, I started this broadcast talking about the fact that there is an anointing on finances. Y'all better stay woke. I'm telling you, the season has shifted. Anything, you have access. That is the word I'm telling you. You have access. The question is, what are you going to do for it? Are we going to walk out of this next season of access to kingdom wealth and have nothing to show for it? That's why we're having these conversations right now, so that you can understand that what happened in Tulsa, it wasn't just about the massacre. It was about the reasons behind the massacre. It was about the power behind the massacre. It was about what was built. It was about what was hidden, right? If you know who you are, you know where you can go, because you can go beyond that, right? So I started by saying where we are with finances. There's access to so much money now. It's not even funny. The question is, what are we going to do with it? Or is it going to be like 2008 where everybody balling, and then when the government comes and moves their hand, you don't have nothing to show for it? So here's what we're going to do. Next week, you all, if you have not seen the episode where we had Michelle Renee on talking about finances and talking about cryptocurrency and talking about the movement of the US dollar, go back and watch it, because we're going to have her on again next week, because she has an urgent word about the shift that's happening in the financial realm. And I need everybody on Unfiltered to know about it. I need everybody on Unfiltered to stay woke. So I wanted to say that, just because as you were talking about finances, I was like, we're going to keep this going through the month, because if you're on this show, our mission is to make sure that you understand what's going on. That's why we have wonderful guests like Martin Augustine on here to talk, because you've been so successful at different businesses. You live there and can tell us the truth. I was there, didn't nobody say nothing. And you have such an enlightened perspective, just from your life experience, whether from a business owner, an entrepreneur, a police detective, whatever it is, to add to the conversation. And we 100% appreciate your being here. Now we're going to finish up this conversation, but first we're going to take a small break and give away some money. So
here's what I'm going to do on that. I don't even know what the giveaway is, but I'm going to throw $100 in that same pot that you doing as well too. So how about
that? Okay. Okay. So then that would actually bring today's giveaway amount to $250. So someone on the broadcast is going to be winning $250. You guys know how we do it. Put a number in 1 through 100 in the chat. I will start the countdown music right now. And Mara's going to help me watch the chat to see who. Wait, he don't even know what the number is. I'm going to text you.
I was like, because
you're like, to see what? Okay. You guys remember our sponsor. Of course, let me go back to this. One of our sponsors. I want to make sure you guys get a second opportunity to get this screenshot. You see people putting up numbers already. So again, one of our sponsors for today is going to be the God Zone. They actually contributed last week, but didn't send the flyer. Please take a screenshot of that right there, so that you can join the Hour of Power. We got to thank Christina Callwood. She poured back into the pot from her winnings last week. Martin, and of course, friends of Unfiltered. So you guys, here comes the countdown, even though y'all already going. Okay.
Sometimes there's no one else who loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves. There's no one I can turn to. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on. We're moving on. I know times are tough, but I've had enough. We're moving on. We're moving on. We're moving on.
Okay. So the number, did you get my text message?
I did.
I was like, okay, so I'm about to change my pattern because everybody gets the number today.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. The number is actually 100. And those of you who recognize that there's a reason behind the numbers that I pick, Tiffany Cannon, I'm gonna need you to. Tiffany Cannon. Here, I gotta do a special announcement for Tiffany Cannon. Dear sister love, Tiffany Cannon, you did not win. There's a pattern, y'all. Okay, so listen, the number is actually 100. So I need you to count the number of people who guessed 100. Demetrius Amos, write the names down. Demetrius Amos guessed 100. Christina Callwood, my dear friend Marguerite, Rutho, Freedom by Design, Katrina guessed 100. Are you writing these names down for me?
I'm trying. You're going faster than my fingers.
Okay, Gifty Myers, Tiffany Yarn, and I think that's it. Did I get everybody who guessed 100?
That was. I think that was it. Yeah, that was at least 6 or 7 people.
And I don't see my mom on today. Let me find out my mom didn't watch the show today. You want to get something in the chat. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. A lot of you won today, and she's like, I won. I'm actually gonna go ahead and send $100 to each of you.
Wow.
So,
wow, so amazing.
So congratulations.
100 too. I think I guessed.
Oh, you're gonna take your 100 back that you just said? So it's on my heart to bless each of you. So I'm gonna go ahead and send $100 to each of you who guessed 100 in honor of the 100-year anniversary of what happened in Tulsa.
Wow, what an amazing, amazing gesture. Hope we do something well with that wealth. Don't go buy don't make it a down payment on Louis Vuitton.
Right, that part. So as we're like kind of past the hour, but I want to give you an opportunity to kind of give some closing thoughts. As we're here and we're talking about, and we didn't get a chance to get into the second part because part of the analogy here was, and I'm gonna say this so that I can do a setup because I'm gonna have to have you back again.
All right, done deal.
So I'm gonna say this so I can do a setup. So part of the thing that we were gonna talk about also was the defund the police, which is now turned into refund the police. I think that that's a whole segment by itself. We want to hear you. It's probably going to be a whole segment by itself because we're not going to be able to really get into it today. And the reason that was a conversation is because if you look at what happened during the 2 days of murder, not writing, of murder that took place in Tulsa, on June 1st, they started rounding up all the Black people at gunpoint and moving them into the convention center and keeping them. And I don't understand for the life of me, again, that's the police being used against them, how the National Guard decided it was easier to round up 3,000 Black people than the hundreds of white people who's running around bombing stuff, looting and killing folks.
That is amazing. Just adding this a note to that so everybody understand the significance. They rounded up all of these, 3,000 to 6,000 Black people. And the only way they could be released is if they were vouched for by a white person.
They had to sign a green card.
Yeah, yes, yeah. They had to be vouched for, even though that this was their neighborhood, even though this was their homes, until they were, and this is the National Guard. That means that's a government sanctioned roundup. The National Guard, the police, and the only way they could be released. So you got to understand, they were either jailed or killed. And the only way to be released from that monstrosity and that terror is a white person had to vouch for them to be released. That's so much in that. Well, there's so much in that.
It is so much, and it goes right into what we're going to talk about with what's happening with the police today, because that's why when I started, I said some people would say everything has changed and some people would say nothing at all. So it just depends on your perspective. So as we close out today, guys, I do want to let you guys know something. Next week when Michelle is on, I'm not going to tell you how much it's going to be, but she's actually giving away Bitcoin. Not a Bitcoin. Don't y'all go run around line telling people have 1,000 people on the show.
Wow.
It will be in cryptocurrency. So if you don't have cryptocurrency, please, I've had people call me and said they want to give away cryptocurrency on the show. And if you know anything about cryptocurrency, I would rather have $100 in cryptocurrency than $100. Right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Send it to me. I'll take it.
Right. And then watch that thing 10x over the next year and just let it sit there and grow. So we want to invest in you. So please go to Coinbase and set up the account so that you have your cryptocurrency address, your Bitcoin address, or whatever app you choose to use. Do that before the show next time. And you guys, I want to say thank you so much. You guys give a round of applause in the chat. You guys have been chatting away to our brother and friend, Martin Augustine, because he is coming back probably towards the end of the month. We've got to have this defund the police, refund the police conversation.
Oh yeah, we got to have that. Got to have it.
Yeah, we got to have it because it's an important one. Okay, here's my mom ready for Bitcoin, but I did not see you guys today. I think Tish called her and told her to get on the show. I'm gonna call you right it's over. But okay, Martin, I'm gonna let you say your goodbyes, have the last words, and anything you want to leave on the hearts of the people before I tell them goodbye.
Yeah, listen, such an amazing platform, and again, even myself, I don't sit from a place of privilege or a place of exclusion. There's so much of our history that we leave on the table, leave behind closed doors, or leave for someone else to facilitate and tell to us. There's no way as a person of color that we should be receiving our histories at 40 and 50 years old, and then what we don't have, we can't give. So our children are following that same systemic oppression that was given to us. We think, I don't know how many people cringe when they look at old slavery movies and so forth, but there's so much history. We get angry, but we get only angry enough to turn the TV off, not angry enough to make an action. We get angry enough to plug our ears, but not angry enough to say something. So this platform is such an amazing platform, Bernadette, Stand Woke, Unfiltered. Family, if we don't wake up, we will be passed by. We'll stay asleep. And again, I have daughters in this world right now that I got to give something to. I would rather give them history. I would rather give them knowledge. I would rather give them empowerment to make better decisions than to give them the latest pair of Jordans or red bottom shoes. With that, thank you, Bern. Love you for the invite. Love you, family. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Much love coming to you from the chat, you guys. I do want to make sure that you guys know that you need to send an email to me at beblessed@bcwright.com. Make sure you guys do send that email to me. I'm putting it on the screen right now. Hopefully you guys can see it. Right there, beblessed@bcwright.com. Send your email. If you are a winner today, I will go back and look, and just tell me the method of payment. If you have my chat, of course, you can chat that to me. But God bless you guys. We love you, and we look forward to seeing you next week with Michelle. We're going to have Martin on later on in the month. And you know how we end every single one of our broadcasts. Until next time, be blessed and stay woke. Bye-bye, guys.